with the view to guiding you to become your very own B2B superhero. Joining me this week is Tyler Witt, Sales Director US for Lead Forensics and returning guest to Lead Forensics webinars. Tyler, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing amazing, Joe, especially now that I'm speaking to you. So always a pleasure to be on here. Very, very appreciative of you asking.
Oh, thank you so much, Tyler. It's great to have you back. So, for this webinar, How to Get Promoted in Sales, we're arming you with the superpowers you need to demonstrate in order to progress your career and work your way up the sales ladder. So, Tyler, my first question to you on this one: what are the key qualities and skills that sales leaders look for when they're considering promotions?
Um, well, it's a good one. It's funny. I kind of in my mind, I was like, all right, these are some things we're going to talk about. Didn't even consider that one, but that's probably the most obvious. So that's on me. No, I'd say the most important. I mean, they're going to probably sound very cliche as I lay them out here, but the biggest one is going to be the self starter. Somebody who I guess the lack of a better way to put it is before you can manage other people, you have to be able to manage yourself. So and from a sales perspective, it's actually quite easy, right? Can you manage your pipeline? Can you manage your emotions? Can you manage your life? There are, people in any environment that they probably bring their personal life into the office or they let their emotions get the better of them. They have a hard time, just simple little things like, keeping the CRM. And I know, it's fun on like Reddit and LinkedIn to make fun of like, oh, you stupid sales managers want me to update CRMs. Like, I mean, we just want to know you're kind of managing your tasks and stuff like that. We don't really care too much, but I think that's probably the biggest one, right? So like when we call it that self starter or whatever, I think, that might be too broad of a way to put it. So I think it's just as simple as, can you manage yourself? If you can't manage to hit your number as an individual, if you can't manage to, if you can't be bothered to manage just your day to day, it's really hard pressed for somebody to say, right, now go manage these people.
Mm.
But once you can do that, then it's pretty easy to say, like, yeah, here, I'll give you a couple other people. You manage your stuff very well. How about I give you a couple other people and you help them manage that? But that's it. And that's what I think of is yourself, your pipeline, your number. You can do those things pretty well. You're on the right track.
Something you mentioned just there, Tyler, which intrigues me slightly, is because I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of salespeople, and something that comes up that you've touched on is, managing emotions and that sort of thing. And something that comes up is being able to manage rejection a lot in sales. Can
Yeah.
you just expand a bit more on what when you say managing those emotions? Is that the sort of thing you mean, or are there other aspects to it?
I would say a bit of other aspects to it. I mean, like, again, I think that being able to handle rejection, I think that's a bit overplayed in the sales world. And here's what I mean by that is you know, salespeople love to think that we are this unique creature out there. That sales is an amazingly stressful job and we take so much rejection. Yada yada. It's like, yeah, I got news for people. Like there are way harder jobs. There are way more stressful jobs. And life in general has a lot of rejection to it. So when I talk about managing emotions, I really just mean like, you know, in general, like you get an opportunity in your pipeline that doesn't look great. Do you let the whole world know about it? Right? Like,
Got
or
you.
do you just, soldier on with your day? I mean, it's actually, I think it's littler than just, yeah, you're going to get a no. And yes, like it does sting. I mean, it stings. You get a deal that you thought was a deal and they say no, it stings. And it's okay to like say like, oh, that sucks. And, I need a moment to just compose myself, that kind of thing. There is going to be some of that. I think the emotion side of it that I'm speaking of is just, do you let the outside world kind of creep into your sales life? Do you take your sales life to your outside world? And do you do a good job just in general of, working on your own mental health? Not just because you're in sales, but because that's an important aspect of life. So I think it's just a little bit, I think it's bigger. And I think most people, they get angry very easily. They get upset very easily. And I think that's fine. I mean, look, it's good, but like if you're showcasing that and it's impacting the people around you, that's when you're having a negative impact on the sales floor. And I want somebody who's able to manage that and have a positive impact on the sales floor.
So how could somebody demonstrate their commitment and their sort of their willingness to advance? Is it as easy as just having that conversation at all? Is it bringing numbers with them? What does
It's
that look like?
The bar is super low. The bar is extremely low. Like, you want to show you're ready for leadership, like, don't bitch, hit your numbers, update your CRM. Like, it really is. And I say that a little bit in jest, but like, again, anybody who's actually been in enough sales environments say no. Yeah, most people don't do that. Most people spend most of their day kind of complaining or griping or bitching, right? They phone it in when it comes to like trainings, right? So you're doing a training with the floor or one to one or something, and you just like, all right, let's get through this together. You have to be chased, right? They know every anybody watching this right now, and maybe well, if you don't know, it's you probably, the person on your sales floor that constantly has to have like, hey, can you please do this? Can you like that repetitive task that has to be done? And every job has them. You have to be asked time and time again. So the bar is actually pretty low. You know,
Mm,
hit your numbers. You don't have to hit your numbers. It's not like I'm asking, people aren't asking for 100% of target, but you can't be the bottom person, but you have to be consistent. Don't bitch and just, manage your pipeline. And that's basically the low bar. And then from there, then you can express to, leadership, hey, here's what I would like in my future. And then that conversation usually starts with like, I would like X. What do you need to see? And ask that question. Like, that's the easiest way to start it, is just like, here's kind of where I would like to go. Share your intentions, right? Your goals, and then ask them, what do you need to see for me to get X? What needs to happen kind of deal.
mm. So then, just immediately off the back of that, then, you said like that's the sort of opener that you would need to see to consider somebody. Are there any absolute? I mean, besides whinging and moaning about the day to day stuff, are there
Yeah.
any other mistakes that you see consistently if someone they want the extra benefits of a promotion and everything, but is there something consistently that you see that makes you think I'm not ready to consider you just yet at this point?
Yeah, the biggest mistake is well, there's two. There's two, I suppose, because everybody, I think, speaks of the one, and it is worth mentioning, which is top performers aren't always top managers. Top contributors are, and that's the distinction I always make. Right, top performer is the person that brings me the most revenue. Top contributor is the person that brings me the most value. And those aren't all rarely actually are they the same thing. Is a top contributor will bring me, they're going to bring revenue, right? When I say we, me, I mean the business. They're going to bring in the revenue, but they're also contributing to culture, to training, to these other maybe less tangible things. So the one mistake is obviously promoting somebody into leadership, right? Specifically because they bring the numbers. There's a lot more to it. I don't know if people make that mistake quite as much anymore because we do talk about it so much. So the other one that I think is the silliest one, and I see it to this day, is in the sales role, people that want to get promoted because they think it brings more money. Yeah, not right away. It is if you are good at sales, good at managing yourself, good at organizing, good at managing emotions, good at managing your pipeline, your numbers are going to be there and your pay is going to be there. In this kind of environment where salespeople have really never been paid better, which is, I mean, partly inflation, but partly rightfully, we've put some pressure on, getting the comp plans right. So people think they're going to move in and their pay is going to do this, right? No, no, no. Your pay in leadership is going to do this for the first couple years. And then, yeah, as you build a team, as you get promoted, it'll start raising back up. But it took me a good 5 years in leadership, and people can say, well, that's not right, Tyler, but like it really did, to where I started getting my income, up to here, because it's again, I made a lot of money as a contributor. I got into leadership because that's the path I wanted to go. And you have to know it's not about the money. It's about you're doing it for the right reasons, impacting other people, long term, this and the other. Right. And then eventually they'll get there. But yeah, to this day, I hear people like, yeah, I just, I want a way to, earn more. Well, then sell more. That's your way to earn more. Leadership is not necessarily the route short term.
So let's just to give you a sort of a scenario that perhaps you can play out for us, Tyler. Let's say you've got two, maybe more candidates. If saying, "Look, I want to go for promotion," you've got someone
Mhm.
saying, "I also want the same promotion." What are those key characteristics that is going to differentiate which way you take that decision? But also, what steps could they take to stand out against the competition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think from a manager standpoint, like any gig, you have to have a very clearly identified, ideal candidate profile. It's like, what are your company DNAs? What are the things that do, whatever, right? You go on and on about it, but you have to have that very clearly defined. And then you interview them. I mean, I've, obviously done it before. We're promoting both internally, externally. Like you have to have them defined and you have to be good at interviewing to understand. It's easier when they're internal because you have a lot more, you have a lot bigger pool to kind of pull from in terms of experience and answers. Um, but, yeah, that from that side of things, it's about, like anything, it's about good interviewing when you have multiple candidates, good defined and then good interviewing for the person, right? And this is where the benefit of being, we are talking about promoted because you're an internal candidate at that point, typically around promotion, right? I mean, you can interview externally for promotion, but typically I think in this context, we're talking about internal promotions. You have the benefit of speaking to the hiring manager on a daily basis. So the
Mm,
best advice I can give is let your intentions known as soon as you have them. It's just like a sales call. When should you, talk about closing at the very beginning of the process? Like, right, I'm
mm,
gonna take you through this process and my ultimate goal is to win your business. XYZ, right? And kind of set that out and get expectations laid. Same thing on a job. Like, Joe, ultimately, I would love to move into a leadership position. I would like to work with you and kind of understanding, how I get there, timelines, expectations, that kind of thing, and put it on your leader to to set the rules of the road and to mentor you along the way for success.
mm. And someone, a previous employer, once said to me, this is something I've carried in the back of my mind ever since it was told to me, is that you can teach technical skills and you can teach, the things you need to do the job. The one thing you cannot teach is attitude. Is that the same for sales? Would you agree with that? And how important is that?
Yeah, I have the arrogance of a good coach of where I think everything can be taught. I think like, you can't teach everybody everything, but you can teach everybody something, right? So yes, I best way I can say it is this is the most important thing is people want to learn, grow, develop, get better, right? That's the table stakes. What you have to bring to the table is a desire for X, whatever that X is. And if that's the case, then that's why I think communicating to somebody, here's where I would like to go. And maybe the feedback is to the point you just made is maybe the feedback is like right now you have a poor attitude, right? Like I just, look, your numbers are good, this is good, but like and that has to be the feedback. The right coach can give that feedback in a way that's going to be received. And then you have to have a plan of like, right, here's how we can work on that. Here are some things. And then you develop that over time. And that's basically going to get you, but you have to have the realistic knowledge, awareness that I may not be able to get to the level necessary to take on a team
Mm,
on some of those things. So I think it goes hand in hand of, again, it can potentially be taught, but it has to be spoken about. And then we can maybe work on it to get you there. And if we don't get you there, you know, right? I had a guy, I'll share this really quick story. I did have a guy where he's going for promotion and we basically set out, and that was one of the things. It's a real story. So talked to the kid and he wanted to get promoted. And I said, right, your numbers are good, this and the other. I was like, but one of the things is like, when you around the office, the way you're interacting with your employees, it's not bad. It's just, you're never the one that's first to get up and high five. You're never the one to say, good job, right? You stay in your lane and you sell. And I said, and there's nothing wrong with that. but, why do you want to get into leadership? And, it was a money thing and it was the, long term. And I was like, awesome. Well, here's what we need to work on. You need to be that team player. Like you've got to be, you got to learn to mentor people. We got to work on, building people up, this, that, and the other. And so we did a bunch of stuff and I won't go into the round and round about it, but the position came open, had a couple guys that wanted it. And this one guy he was good, but this girl actually was just in that aspect of it, of like sales skills, training people, mentoring. She had just shown she did it better, right? Like she's just spending more time on it. So she got the position. And he threw his laptop. And
No.
I said, I was pretty sure I made the right decision, but now I know I made the
Yeah.
right decision, right? This will be your last day. But like that. So like point being is like anybody can get better if they want to on something. But yeah, that's about that relationship between the two of like, here's the feedback. Let's work on this and getting them better. Yeah.
Well, Tyler, you've done enough of these to know that I will ask for your top tip at the end of the conversation. I can
Yeah.
imagine that it's don't throw your laptop around.
Yeah. It's a good starting point. It's a good starting point. Yeah.
We touched on attitude and things that aren't necessarily the easiest things to measure when discussing
Mhm.
promotion. Let's go to something that is very much you know how you're going to measure that sort of thing. What is the data? What are the analytics you're going to look at when if someone's showcasing this is what I've done? What is it that you're looking for within the data that they're presenting to you?
The So again, we're talking about kind of that first level from individual contributor to like team lead, sales manager kind of role, right? Which again is kind of how I'm taking the context of this conversation because it is a bit different. I'm going to measure, obviously have different standards of measures when promoting into, say, a senior manager or a VP level, right? So like that, similar attributes, but just there's different data that I'm maybe looking at there. But the key data is just your KPIs. I cannot like, here's a good example. I've had guys that manage cold callers, right? A team of people that are making cold calling all day. I cannot, if you, Joe, want to, manage those people. And one of my key KPIs is 100 dials a day, let's say, right? Just round number. I need you to be making 100 dials a day. But you don't do it. I'm never going to let you manage somebody because you're not bought in on that. Rightfully or wrongfully, and then we can have the arguments of the validity of that KPI. But like, if you're able to hit the meetings off of 50 dials, well, then exceed the meetings expectations and hit the dials kind of deal. And and I know that may trigger some people, but like, that's just one example is basically what the KPIs are. That's the table stakes. Whatever your KPIs are as a business, if you cannot manage yourself to get to those KPIs, I know for a fact, it is not disputed. I know for a fact you can't manage somebody else to get to those KPIs. So that's one of the easiest things about sales is so black and white in terms of KPIs. We
Mm.
have this, we have this, we have this. I don't need you to blow through them. I don't need you to double them. I don't need you to be the top in any one. Like that's a disconnect. You don't have to be the number one in all of them. Sure, there's probably somebody else that does the X, Y, and Z better, but your table stakes are you have to be at your KPIs. And I'll say that again, because if you can't manage to get yourself to those KPIs, I know for a fact you're not gonna be able to manage somebody else to them.
100%. Something else that I wanted to ask you about, you brought up a couple of times, this idea of the long term play, like getting promoted for
Yeah.
the long term career there. What are the best practices for creating that sort of career plan on a personal level, and then in order to help you, because then look into them for promotion for that. What are the steps you need to take to make that personal career plan? Do you think?
So once it goes beyond kind of first level management, et cetera, like I actually think it changes a lot. So um in all reality, I think for that one, you want to network a lot and you do want to be open to honestly the market. Because I think, right, when you get towards VP director level, a lot of companies, they're set in, they're boom, we've got that pipeline. Unless it's an early startup. I mean, I'll give you that, right? Early startup, that might be different. But a lot of companies, like they're pretty locked in. And unless there's tremendous growth and they open up a whole new arm or channel of business, that VP, that director level, they get pretty locked in. And so at that point, the only thing you can hope for in your current role is a turnover in that position. And I don't like that because that's not good. That means somebody else, maybe they moved on, but it also means they maybe didn't succeed. And I don't want to root for somebody else's failure for my own success. That just seems asinine. So once it comes for the beyond first level is yes, if you're with a company that's in growth mode, good to go. Should be able to lock in, right, and kind of ride that for a while. But otherwise, you have to be networking, looking at the market because that's almost the only way you can move from front level to VP to director is external and looking for companies that are hiring in those positions. So yeah, that's getting from sales rep to manager level is one thing. Going beyond that can be a little bit trickier, especially internal in companies where it's just tends to be pretty locked in.
Well, Tyler, as always, you've offered up some incredible value and some insights for our audience here. I am going to start to wrap up our conversation.
Yeah.
But just before I come back to you with one final question, to which we know the answer is don't throw your laptop around. That's the thing that we've all come away with today. Um, Many superheroes obviously have the power of invisibility. So wouldn't it be great if you were able to reveal the invisible B2B visitors to your website? That is exactly what Lead Forensics does. It's a software which identifies visitors to your B2B website, showing you their customer journey, what links they've clicked on, what pages they've looked at, and all in real time. If you'd like to book an obligation free trial or sit a demo with us, just answer the poll, which is on screen now, and we will get in touch to arrange that for you. I will leave that poll up as we come to the end of our conversation here with Tyler. If I could also ask you to click on the on screen link, which takes you to our webinar feedback form, I would love to hear what you've enjoyed about this webinar. So, Tyler, let's come back to you now. As I say, you provide us with loads of brilliant takeaways for getting promoted in a sales career. If I could ask you for that, it's coming, that one top tip that everybody here watching this should take away with them today, what is that golden rule?
I would say, well, I have to do two. So I apologize, but there's got to be two because the one is work for a company that promotes. So like learn that during the interview process. If you miss that, I mean, that's on you to be honest, right? So interview for that. That's a whole other topic. But to the point you just make about invisibility, don't be invisible. Make yourself the obvious choice. That's the better advice. It's like make yourself that obvious choice. And by that, I mean you got to be the top contributor and a contributor hits their numbers, right? Their KPIs, but they also are just, the contributors because they're positive. They have a positive impact on the people around them, whether they're directly on their team, whether they're in other departments. Those are the people that the company wants to invest in and grow. I promise you, you could be whatever the KPI is. Maybe it's number of SAT appointments you have in a month. That's your KPI. And the number is 10 and you're hitting 10 every single month, right? So you're not blowing out of the water, but you're hitting it. And there are 20 people above you on that metric. Fine. But you're hitting the number, but you are just a good person and you work well with others and people love, you just know it. That person's got a better chance than the person who's doubling the KPIs, but it's a bit of a prick to his colleagues. You know what I mean? Like I 100% like people want to work for people they like and trust, make them feel better. Your job as a manager is to hit numbers and keep morale high. A prick cannot do that. Right. So like maybe they can hit the numbers, but they're not good for morale. So that's probably it. Make yourself an obvious choice. And by that, I mean, hit your KPIs and just be a great human being. That's a pretty good place to start in terms of getting promoted.
Perfect stuff. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing your B2B superpowers with us today. Keep an eye on Lead Forensic Socials for news of our upcoming webinars, and we will see you again very, very soon. Tyler, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.